What happens when a country decides former colonizers won't push it around? Burkina Faso's bold stand signaled a domino effect for other nations seeking independence, and now Africa is taking action. French intelligence agents are held in Burkina Faso, and the government is not ready to let him go after facing Western pressure. So, does this mean Africa is standing up for itself? Let's find out. But why were these French intelligence agents arrested in Burkina Faso?
African country. The military junta that is currently ruling in Burkina Faso accuses them of engaging in subversive activities.
The story begins on December 1st, 2023, when 4 agents from France's General Directorate for External Security, DGSE, were apprehended shortly after landing in Ouagadougou. Their initial mission, shrouded in claims of routine computer maintenance for the French embassy, quickly turned into a sensational scandal as the Burkinabe government accused them of espionage. It's almost laughable how the French intelligence community thought they could strut into a country with a history of colonial oppression and play the same old games. Did they believe they could bypass proper diplomatic protocols and not raise eyebrows? These agents arrived with e-visas instead of the necessary diplomatic visas, demonstrating a shocking level of arrogance. It's as if they were still operating under the assumption that their presence was welcomed without question. However, Burkina Faso, under Captain Ibrahim Traore's military regime, is not the same nation it once was. No longer a passive recipient of Western directives, but a sovereign entity ready to reclaim its narrative. Their arrest reflects a significant shift in Burkina Faso's attitude towards France. Once considered a reliable ally, France now faces a regime that openly questions its motives. The actions of these agents were perceived not just as a breach of protocol, but as a direct threat to the stability of Traore's government, which is already under pressure from jihadist threats and a need to assert its authority. What many overlook is the deeper context of this arrest. It symbolizes a broader resistance to neo-colonialism. For decades, African nations have been subjected to the whims of foreign powers, often enduring humiliation under the guise of international cooperation. The Burkinabe people are no longer content to play the role of the passive observer. They are demanding respect, autonomy, and the right to govern their affairs without outside interference. This situation is compounded by the lingering trauma of colonial history. Burkina Faso, like many African nations, has had to navigate the complex legacies of oppression, exploitation, and cultural erasure. The presence of French agents, accused of espionage in a time of political turmoil, strikes a chord with a populace that remembers the days of colonial subjugation. This historical memory fuels the fervor with which the Burkinabe are defending their sovereignty. And now, as the French grapple with the fallout from their intelligence agents' arrest, Russia is making waves in Burkina Faso, ready to seize the moment. This shift in alliances is not just a trend, it's a clear signal that Burkina Faso is tired of Western interference and is seeking partners that respect its sovereignty and offer tangible support. But how did we get here?
What they have done. French authorities have rejected the allegations, saying they are unfounded and lack any legal merit. This is the latest in a series of diplomatic rows that have happened between France and Burkina Faso since the military junta took power in September 2022. They have taken deliberate steps to distance Burkina Faso from France.
Since Traore's military coup in September 2022, Burkina Faso has been aligning itself with Russia, joining the ranks of other West African nations like Mali and Niger that have similarly sought to escape the clutches of former colonial powers. This isn't just political posturing. It's a bold strategy to ensure national security in the face of rising jihadist threats. Burkina Faso's government has expressed keen interest in Russian military assistance, arms deals, training, and even mercenary support. Who needs NATO when you can have the Wagner Group at your side? Moreover, Russia's approach to economic engagement in Burkina Faso is equally fascinating. Discussions surrounding significant investments, including plans for a nuclear power plant, underscore a commitment that far exceeds the typical handouts from Western nations. When Burkina Faso received free grain from Russia, it wasn't just about food security, it was about sending a clear message. This evolving relationship is a masterclass in redefining geopolitical dynamics. While France is embroiled in a public relations nightmare over its detained agents, Russia is patiently building partnerships that not only enhance its influence, but also provide Burkina Faso with the tools it needs to navigate its complex security landscape. Let's not forget the psychological impact of this shift. For many in Burkina Faso, aligning with Russia symbolizes a reclamation of agency. It's about more than just military and economic support. It's a statement of identity and pride. By forging new alliances, Burkina Faso is asserting its independence in a world that often tries to pigeonhole African nations into subservient roles. This psychological dimension cannot be understated. It energizes a population that has long felt marginalized and ignored. This partnership also raises questions about the future of international relations in Africa. If more nations choose to align with Russia or other non-Western powers, what will that mean for the traditional balance of power? Are we witnessing the birth of a multipolar world where African nations are no longer bound by the dictates of Western powers? Well, it looks like it. And what does this all mean for France? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. With its historical grip on West Africa slipping, the French government's attempts to negotiate the release of its agents are increasingly being viewed through a new lens, one that highlights their desperation and the absurdity of their claims to legitimacy in the region. As the French government scrambles to secure the release of its intelligence agents, the response from Burkina Faso has been less than accommodating. France's diplomatic efforts are riddled with contradictions and a desperate attempt to spin the narrative. They insist their agents were engaged in legitimate activities, framing their arrest as a misunderstanding rather than acknowledging the deep-seated resentment towards their historical presence in the region. But how can you expect to win hearts and minds when your past is a course of exploitation and control? While French officials make grand statements about the agents' innocence, the Burkinabe authorities are unwavering. They've made it clear that these agents are not merely victims of circumstance. They are emblematic of a larger issue, the need to dismantle the remnants of colonial influence. Every time France tries to play the victim card, it only serves to deepen the Burkinabe resolve to stand firm against perceived foreign meddling. Adding to the absurdity, the French government has resorted to consular visits and media engagement in a bid to gain sympathy. They're practically begging for understanding, all while the Burkinabe leadership capitalizes on the situation to reinforce their sovereignty. It's a bold strategy, to say the least, as Burkina Faso uses this moment to showcase its newfound independence and assert its right to self-determination. What is especially revealing is the role of public opinion in this diplomatic standoff. The Burkinabe people are closely observing the actions of their government and the response from France. A successful negotiation could either be seen as a capitulation or a victory, depending on how it is framed. This means that the Burkinabe leadership must tread carefully, balancing international relations with domestic sentiments. Moreover, the media landscape plays a crucial role. Local and international coverage can sway public perception, influencing how the government approaches negotiations. In a world where narratives can be constructed and deconstructed at lightning speed, Burkina Faso is acutely aware of the power of storytelling. The government's ability to craft a compelling narrative about its sovereignty and resilience will be essential in navigating these complex diplomatic waters. Now the question is, what does the future hold for France and Africa? The implications of this diplomatic standoff stretch far beyond the fate of 4 French agents. They are a bellwether for the changing tides of power in Africa. France's credibility is on the line, and the consequences of its failure to navigate this situation could ripple through its entire influence in the region. The question now becomes, can France adapt to this new reality, or will it continue to cling to outdated notions of dominance? As African nations like Burkina Faso take bold steps towards asserting their sovereignty, the impact on French foreign policy will be profound. The once comfortable narrative of Western superiority is crumbling, leaving France scrambling to redefine its role in a continent that is increasingly rejecting its influence. The mere fact that Burkina Faso is leveraging its relationship with Russia as a counterbalance to French pressure is a clear sign that the game has changed. But let's be real. This isn't just about Burkina Faso. It's about a broader movement across the continent. Nations are seeking alternatives to the West, exploring partnerships that prioritize mutual respect and support over historical grievances. This shift is alarming for France, which has long viewed Africa as a playground for its geopolitical ambitions. The irony is crazy. While France attempts to spin a narrative of victimhood, it is increasingly being viewed as the antagonist in a story where African nations are reclaiming their power. Burkina Faso is simply a case study in this larger phenomenon, one that could inspire other nations to follow suit and forge their paths free from Western interference. Furthermore, this diplomatic standoff is likely to embolden other African nations facing similar dilemmas. As Burkina Faso demonstrates a willingness to defy colonial legacies, other countries may feel empowered to challenge their relationships with former colonial powers. This could lead to a cascading effect, sparking a movement across the continent that seeks to dismantle the remnants of colonialism and redefine Africa's place in the world. Ultimately, this situation serves as a reminder that power dynamics are not static. The world is shifting, and Africa is poised to play a significant role in shaping its future. If France fails to adapt to this new reality, it may find itself relegated to the sidelines as African nations forge ahead without it. Now, you must be thinking about what's going to be the future of Africa and Western relationships. The future of Africa's relationship with Western powers hangs in the balance, and the standoff over the French intelligence agents in Burkina Faso serves as a microcosm of this larger dynamic. If the current trends continue, we may witness a radical realignment of alliances that could reshape the geopolitical landscape for decades to come. The West, particularly France, must come to terms with the reality that its time as the dominant force in Africa is waning. As nations like Burkina Faso embrace new partnerships, whether it be with Russia, China, or others, they are sending a resounding message that they will not be held hostage to African historical transgressions. This bold declaration of independence is not just a political statement. It's a call to action for other nations to follow suit. For the West, the challenge lies in acknowledging this shift and adapting to a new paradigm that recognizes Africa's agency. It's no longer enough to approach the continent with a paternalistic attitude. Western powers must engage in genuine partnerships that respect Africa's sovereignty and aspirations. The old playbook of manipulation and control will no longer suffice. In the end, Africa is standing at a crossroads, ready to break free from the shackles of colonial influence. The future is bright for nations that are willing to chart their course, free from the burdens of the past. Burkina Faso's defiance against France is just the beginning, a harbinger of a movement that will redefine what it means to be an independent nation in the 21st century. However, the road ahead is fraught with challenges. As African nations assert their independence, they must also grapple with the complexities of governance, development, and internal divisions. The risk of fragmentation remains, especially when faced with external pressures from former colonial powers attempting to reclaim their influence. Additionally, the geopolitical landscape is shifting rapidly. With the rise of new global players like China and India, Africa must navigate a delicate balancing act between competing interests. This relationship will require astute diplomacy and a keen understanding of the nuances involved in international relations. In this context, African nations have an opportunity to redefine their identity on the global stage. They can advocate for a more equitable world order that prioritizes their interests and acknowledges their contributions. The narrative of Africa as a victim of colonialism must evolve into one that celebrates resilience, innovation, and the drive for self-determination. And in the end, let's figure out one thing. Will Traore let go of these agents when forced by France? Traore's regime is characterized by a strong emphasis on national sovereignty and a desire to assert independence from foreign influence. Any perceived pressure from France could be seen as an affront to Burkina Faso's sovereignty, making it less likely for Traore to comply with French demands. Instead, he may use the situation to strengthen his position domestically by framing it as a stand against neo-colonialism. The decision to release the agents may heavily depend on the sentiment of the Burkinabe population. If the public views the agents as a symbol of French interference, Traore might resist releasing them to avoid backlash from constituents who support his stance against colonial legacies. And don't forget, he is the man of people. Traore has been actively seeking partnerships with other nations, notably Russia. Should these relationships prove beneficial in providing military or economic support, he might be less inclined to appease France. Instead, he may leverage the situation to solidify these new alliances. The broader implications of releasing the agents could affect Burkina Faso's international standing. Traore must consider how this decision will resonate with other nations that are watching closely. If releasing the agents is perceived as capitulating to Western pressure, it may embolden both internal and external critics. Traore might choose to hold on to the agents as a bargaining chip, using them to negotiate favorable terms with France or to extract concessions. This tactic could strengthen his position in future dealings with Western powers. Are we to see any reaction from France? If Captain Ibrahim Traore chooses not to comply with French demands regarding the release of the detained intelligence agents, he may indeed face several consequences. France could retaliate diplomatically by reducing its engagement with Burkina Faso. This might involve withdrawing support, canceling aid packages, or shutting down cooperation agreements. However, given that Burkina Faso is pivoting towards other nations, such as Russia, Traore may see this as a minor setback rather than a significant loss. France, as a powerful member of the international community, might impose sanctions on Burkina Faso. These could target specific sectors, such as trade or military cooperation. Nevertheless, Traore may anticipate that his government can withstand such pressure, especially if alternative partnerships provide economic support. His focus on strengthening ties with Russia could mitigate the impact of any Western sanctions. Although direct military intervention is unlikely, France might bolster its military presence in the region as a show of force. However, this could backfire, as Traore could leverage any military posturing to rally domestic support, framing it as an affront to Burkina Faso's sovereignty and igniting nationalist sentiments. While Western pressure could provoke fear of isolation, Traore's identity as a leader of the people means he will prioritize public sentiment over international relations. If he resists Western influence, it may bolster his standing among citizens who are tired of neo-colonial legacies. In this case, the consequences from France may be less relevant than maintaining his support at home. Also, Traore's defiance could influence neighboring countries with similar sentiments. If Burkina Faso stands firm against France, it might embolden other nations in the region to assert their sovereignty, thereby altering the broader geopolitical landscape. This potential ripple effect could add pressure on France to recalibrate its approach to Africa. What do you think? How will the West respond when faced with an Africa that refuses to be controlled? Are we ready to confront the uncomfortable truths that this situation exposes about our global order? Let us know in the comments section. What changes await us as Africa steps boldly into its future, controlled by no one? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.